Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 3. Here we are, cruising right along. Week 3 of 15. Hot diggity daffodil. Now, I hope things have been going well. Last week, we discussed and went over fluffy versus flavorful language, and we'll go back to that as well. To review a bit, this week, our main topic is making a point, and we're going to go over some different methods that we use to make a point. Now, we make points in regular speech, sure, and we make points in lessons in how we be an effective teacher. So it's a very helpful, relatable skill for us as teachers and as presenters. So hopefully we get some use out of this. We're going to use some more media in this lesson as well. Hopefully it was all fun. And then we're going to talk about our first, project, assignment. We'll use assignment. Projects are for the big things. Assignment for the little thing. Because it is something I want us to be, to start getting ready for. So hopefully we're staying on top of the discussions and staying on top of eClass. Make sure to check it out. All right, let's dive right into the lesson. Before we get into our main lecture of making a point, I want to give you an example, a real example from a couple of years ago now, of fluffy writing. If we look at the screen, you can see here, this is a summary. This is it's a teaching philosophy from someone who was applying for a job as a teacher. And you can see it's quite a lot of words. But let's take a look at it together and see what they're saying. A central element to my practice is the reflective and reflexive feedback loop. I remain highly engaged with my students as to how they are progressing and what they are finding challenging, then modifying learning objectives to best suit them as we go. As I teach, I ensure students understand their strengths as individuals and then highlight how that contributes to the collective group. First, I identify their learning needs by striving to understand their personalities and their educational strengths and weaknesses. I reflect on the information gathered, then give students a choice of tasks from a selection of material catering to different learning strengths. In the beginning, students gravitate towards the things they can do easily and well, or something that appeals to their style of learning. I then group students together with the objective of students' strengths contributing to the group in order to bring about balanced and positive group dynamics. They are given a task that requires each team member to draw upon their subsequent strength to complete the task. The outcome of this is a positive student-centered environment where diversity of strengths and experiences are valued and illustrates to students how these rich differences enhance group performance. That is a lot of fluffy writing describing how this individual teaches. We'll come back to this later, but this is a lot of fluff, not a lot of meat, so to speak, not a lot of flavor, a lot of marshmallow, not a lot of bimbop. That's a long time to make a point, and that's what we're going to talk about. Want to take a quick note. I had a complete brain fart there. I want to talk about the two main kinds of appeals. We have intellectual appeals and emotional appeals. Now, as you can guess from the very title, intellectual appeals appeal to our logical side, our rational brains. It's how things should be. Emotional appeals appeal to just that, our emotions, our hate, our love, our lust, our gluttony, things like that. All those base human desires that we have. That's the emotional appeal. And so, just thinking, usually we like to think we're very logical and rational. But, spoiler alert, we're not. Humans are very emotional, as we can see. Now, in general, emotional appeals for things are more effective but they rely on less proof, on less evidence, on less logic. So we see emotional appeals a lot more often by people trying to sell us things. And there's lots of examples of that. For example, in cars, when they're trying to sell you a car, they're not saying like, hey, buy this car, it's cheap and it's good. No, they're saying, buy this car, it goes fast, you feel good, and your family's going to be safe, your kid can play in the back, and you got no problem, you got lots of room. It's all very emotional appeal. Intellectual appeals are how we try to appeal with statistics, with numbers, with figuring out what's actually best, what's most logical for us. And depending on individuals and groups, certain people are very intellectual. They do not respond to emotional appeals at all. Other people, they don't respond to intellectual appeals at all. And more people respond to emotional appeals than respond to intellectual appeals. I'll give you another example. What's it called? The Save the Children campaigns, or World Vision, were these charities that try to help starving kids. It hits you right, where in the feels, as they say. So as we look at these different ways of making a point, I want you to bear in mind: is this geared more towards an intellectual appeal, or is it more towards an emotional appeal? We're going to talk about being remembered and how to make a point in our lessons. And I'm going to give this in generally with speeches as well. So how to make a point. So here are 5 ways to make a key point. One is through statistics. So the best statistics, that's being numbers, is to make it memorable and understandable. You can say, rather than saying there's 6 gazillion terabytes of information on the internet, it's not true, there's more, but if you make it relatable, if you were going to try and read everything on the internet, it would take you 60,000 years, day and night. So the first, it's too abstract. Numbers don't really mean that much. So we need to make it relatable. So, for example, on YouTube, about every second, there, at least last time I saw, every second on YouTube, there are 500 gigabytes of video uploaded every second. I heard that last year, so there's probably more now. So this is often brought up when people are like, why doesn't YouTube have people watching videos and make sure they're okay? Well, the answer is they can't afford that. Well, they can afford that. Google has money, but they don't want to, because they would have to hire thousands of people to individually sit and watch videos. It's too labor intensive. Now, a very common phrase was, now this might surprise you. And this is an example.
Now, folks, I don't want to alarm you, but scientists say 40% of America's pictures are hanging crooked. No. Yeah.
Now, we see that example. He says, now this might surprise you. He changed it to, now I don't want to alarm you, but scientists say, we have appeal to authority there, that up to 40% of Americans' picture frames are hanging crooked. That's a joke. But you can see the reaction. Everyone's like, oh no, oh my goodness. So using statistics, it can work. Another nice way is comparisons, analogies, metaphors, and we'll talk about this in more detail later on. But when we're explaining complex, difficult things, it's nice to relate them to something that is more understandable, more relatable to us. And so we take a familiar thing, we have this new unfamiliar thing, and we compare it to a familiar thing that most people know and understand. A very common comparison is taking, for example, national budget. So how much our government spends every year, spends a lot of money. And it's often compared to like, well, if we if the government was a business, it'd be out of business. That's true. Or if you ran your household budget like the government does, you go to jail or you'd be in debt. You would be bankrupt. That's true. But governments aren't individuals and they're not businesses. They're on a different scale. So it's a way of trying to get people to understand how things work. So we have analogies as well, comparing, contrasting. Now, another Simpsons video here. Bart, the boy, and Homer, the father, are having a talk. And as we can see in the title, Homer gives Bart advice on women. And Bart, being a 10-year-old boy, he doesn't understand women. And so Homer, the father, is going to try to explain it. But it's not easy to explain. So let's see how they handle it.
Dad, I have some questions about women.
Can't you see I'm reading the, cultural calendar? Ooh, mostly Mozart is in town.
Homer, Bart's at a very curious age. As his father, I think you should have a frank and earthy discussion about, you know.
But Marge, I think you should learn about it the same way I did.
Are you sure?
All right. So this is all just set up. Bart is interested in romantic encounters. And we'll see how Homer learned about it.
Zookeeper! Those two monkeys are killing each other!
They're having sex.
Oh? Maybe you're right. Now if you'll excuse us. This is a sacred moment between a boy and his father. Son, a woman is a lot like, a refrigerator. They're about 6 feet tall, 300 pounds. They make ice and... Oh, wait a minute. Actually, a woman is more like a beer. They smell good. They look good. You'd step over your own mother just to get one. But you can't stop at one. You want to drink another woman. So I says, yeah, if you want that money, come and find it, 'cause I don't know where it is, you baloney. You make me wanna retch.
All right. So you see there. Homer has two metaphors, two analogies comparing women to help explain women to his son. The first is that he says a woman is a lot like a refrigerator, and that they're about 6 feet tall, they weigh 300 pounds, and they make ice. Now, 6 feet tall, that's about 182 centimeters, and 300 pounds, that's about 150 kilograms. So most women are not 180 centimeters tall, and most people are not 150 kilograms in weight. And people don't make ice. So that metaphor doesn't really work. It's not relatable. But the beer metaphor does, but Bart doesn't really understand, doesn't get it yet. He's too young. Because Homer says beer looks good, smells good, and you step over your own mother just to get one. As in, when, teenage boys and young men, girlfriends are very important to them. So, and then we see Homer has 12 beers. So he's very drunk. All right. Next, storytelling. This is very, very common. We see this in many different medias as well. And especially, say, in sermons and by reverends or or pastors or priests. Sermons are very, very helpful for teaching things, for making a point, relating with Bible stories or Aesop's fables, things like that. Or the point of the two brothers, Hungbu and Nobu. There's a point there. There's a lesson to learn. And so the stories do teach us things, or they're meant to teach us. And if they're good storytellers, they're very, very engaging. I want to show you one very short clip from a motivational speaker, a corporate motivational speaker from, oh my goodness, about over 30 years ago now, so that's 1,000 years ago, but he has a very, very high energy way of speaking that we don't see too often anymore. It's fallen out of fashion. And I'm going to insert another video about storytelling and selling, because storytelling is very, very good at emotional appeals. And I want to include a video that goes in fully explaining that. It's not going to be in this video, it will be attached along with, but it directly connects with storytelling and emotional appeals.
Interestingly, let's talk about customer focus. Hey, I want to tell you something. The next guy in your business, the next up, or the next customer in that dealership that walks. You go find out if your sales manager is going up to that salesperson and saying, tell me something, that one that just walked out the door? Yeah, what was that customer's basic fundamental overriding need? I'll work you up. But 95 of 100 salespeople in this industry can't tell you. They have no idea in hell what the customer's needs are. But if he said, oh, the needs for a four-door, the needs for a red car, I'm not talking about need. The guy came through the door because his kid's leaving for college and he's looking for a car that she or he can get there safe. They came in the car because the neighbor bought a car and they're looking for a status or an image. We don't know that. Customer focused in selling says that we identify the customer's needs from the customer's point of view. And it is a sales management responsibility for everyone who walks out that door to say to the salesperson, what was that customer's need? By the way, I even kid General Motors. I've been to every one of the Chevrolet and all of those great, fantastic systems that you got where you're measuring customer satisfaction of the people who bought the car. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to measure customer satisfaction of the people who didn't buy the car.
Next, we can ask questions, making your point through using questions. So we ask a question at the beginning, and through your presentation, through your lesson, you're going to provide answers to that question. So you ask a big question at the start, and then you make your point, and you answer that question throughout the lesson. This is a very famous example.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to...
Now, this is President Kennedy. He's saying, why go to the moon? Why do we climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago did somebody try to fly across the Atlantic? So he's saying, like, why? Because people do ask, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do this? And he's saying it. And here is his rhetorical point.
Go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
All right, and so he immediately answers it there, because it's hard. And that these difficult challenges make us better and help organize our efforts. And so having a big goal, a difficult thing, makes us stronger. And so this is the use of asking questions and answering them through a speech. And the whole speech is about 18 minutes long. And so he's asking the question. The question is, why does America need to go to the moon back in the 1960s? Because it's going to be very expensive and there's no cheese there. So why should we go there? And so this whole speech, and we'll watch it later, this whole speech is just that, of trying to answer why. Why do we need to go? And he answers it throughout. All right, there are the some basic ways of making a point. All of them have their own pluses and minuses, and your own comfort level for them as well. And now I like to go back to that fluffy piece of writing and I like to talk about it in some more detail. So let's come back to this very nice example of fluffy writing of this is Coca-Cola. This is full of stuff, but nothing of actual value. This paragraph is real. It's from an Australian teacher who uses it in their job application. And this is them trying to explain their teaching philosophy. Now, just review one more time here. So this is all in one paragraph. They say, a central element to my practice is the reflective and reflexive feedback loop. I remain highly engaged with my students as to how they are progressing and what they are finding challenging, then modifying learning objectives to best suit them as we go. As I teach, I ensure students understand their strengths as individuals and then highlight how that contributes to the collective group. First, I identify their learning needs by striving to understand their personalities and their educational strengths and weaknesses. I reflect on the information gathered, then give the students a choice of tasks from a selection of material catering to different learning strengths. In the beginning, students gravitate towards things that they can do easily and well, or something that appeals to their style of learning. I then group students together with the objective of students' strength contributing to the group in order to bring about balanced and positive group dynamics. They are given a task that requires each team member to draw upon their subsequent strength to complete the task. The outcome of this is a positive student-centered environment where diversity of strength and experiences are valued and illustrate to students how those rich differences enhance group performance. All right, now that's a lot of words, a lot of nice words too. We have to see words like subsequent and student-centered environment. We love that. Diversity of strengths, great. Illustrate to students, good. A lot of very nice words. But let's break it down. What does it actually mean? What is actually being said here? Well, first, let's make this a little easier to read for us. Let's break this into paragraphs. Not paragraphs. Let's break it sentence by sentence and see if that helps. Now, strictly speaking, this entire thing, this entire writing can be summarized into one longish sentence, maybe two. But as of right now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sentences. Very active sentences as well, with the words like I. Very, very active. A lot of repetition too. Let's see if that can be avoided. But let's try to first see what we can excise. What can we take out? And see how we can better shorten and edit this paragraph down into something a bit more readable. All right. Now, a central element to my practice is the reflective and reflexive feedback loop. So reflecting and reflexive feedback loop. Very good. All right. We got that. Now, how they talk about this, how they use this loop, it's not a central element. This is places importance. The central element. Let's make that red. There we go. The central element to my practice is the reflective and reflexive feedback loop. All right. I remain highly engaged with my students as to how they're progressing and what they are finding challenging. Okay. I remain highly engaged with my students as to how they're progressing and what they're finding challenging. Then, modifying learning objectives to best suit them as we go. All right. That's a lot of words there. So what are they actually doing? They are saying to my students and adjust accordingly throughout the term. That's what they're saying. That's really. They're just saying they make sure they're following what's going on with their students. That's all right. Let's move on. As I teach, I ensure students understand their strengths as individuals and then highlight how that contributes to the collective group. So they're saying the teacher is trying to tell his kids, hey, this is what you're good at, and that helps us do better. So I ensure we see that, as in I make sure they understand. First, I identify their learning needs by striving to understand their personalities and their educational strengths and weaknesses. Now, these two sentences are almost saying the same thing. And they're saying, as I teach, I ensure I understand that. But first, before they do that, they identify their learning needs. So these two sentences are out of order. That's why they sound confusing. They say, as I teach, but first I identify their needs. I reflect on the information gathered, then give the students a choice of tasks from a selection of material catering to different learning strengths. Okay, good. So they're going to give dynamic objectives on jobs to do, on how to learn. At first, students were going to do things that they know how to do. That happens. And then the teacher groups students together with the objective, with the goal of student strengths contributing to the group in order to bring about a balanced and positive group dynamic. So if you have one kid who's good at reading, they'll be one in the group. Kid's group at speaking, they'll be in one group. One kid who's good at nothing, they'll be in the group. So each student group will be made of different skilled people. Everyone has their role to play. And so they are given a task that requires each team member to draw upon their subsequent strength to complete the task. So then they have to do better. And so they have to work together as a team to achieve that goal. The outcome of this is a positive student-centered environment where diversity of strengths and experiences are valued and illustrate to students how those rich differences enhance their group performance. So everybody does their job, you get the thing done. So we can summarize this in a more basic way. Another way of summarizing this paragraph is I monitor students' strengths and weaknesses and their progress throughout the term. I create group projects for them to work together on and contribute their strengths to accomplishing the goal. That's it. That's 2 sentences. We can simplify everything, and we can, boil everything down. We don't need to make things too long, especially with how busy we are with everything in our own lives. Brevity is the soul of wit, as Shakespeare used to say. All right. Well, that's the main lecture for this week, week 3, making a point. I have some different methods. Some more comfortable than others, what we're comfortable with, what we like to do. And so as we go on throughout the semester and we have our own projects, I'm going to ask you to utilize these methods. Use them on your own. Use them and start incorporating them into your speech. Now, I as I was editing this together, I decided I'm just going to slap in the longer talk. It's from a TEDx Stockholm, but about the study about how storytelling really works as an emotional appeal, and his opening example is a very good example. It's about selling things on eBay, and a good story will raise this final selling price considerably, a huge amount. So it's something that could be used to make us much wealthier. And we do use this, we see this done by companies all over. They attach stories to their products of where our cabbages come from. They don't come from anywhere. They come from a particular farmer down in Sangju, and that's his story about waking up every day and growing cabbages. And it does work. We feel that emotional appeal. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
In 2009, a man, a journalist, by the name Rob Walker, wanted to find out is storytelling really the most powerful tool of all? And in order to do this, he went on his computer and he bought 200 objects from eBay. And the average price of the objects were about $1. He then called 200 authors and he asked them, hey, would you like to be part of the significant object study? Which means that I would like to write a story to one of the objects. And 200 authors said yes. So there he had 200 objects, he had 200 stories, and I assume that it was with nail-biting anticipation that he went on eBay again with all the 200 objects. Would there be a difference? Would there be a change? Do you think there was a change? One of the objects was this beautiful horse's head. There we go. The beautiful horse's head. Now this beautiful horse's head was bought for 99 cents and was sold when a story was added for $62.95. That is a slight increase of 6,395%. So was this a one-off situation? Not really, because he bought the 200 objects for a total of $129, selling them for $8,000. Now that's insane. But you know what's even more intellectually challenging to understand is how can you and I go to the movies and pay good money to watch movies like James Bond, who are absolutely unrealistic. And we sit there, we enjoy the movie, and some of us, we really enjoy the movie. And we leave the theater going like, God, what a man. I would like to be more like him. I'd like to walk like him. I'd like to talk like him. I like Bond. Wonder how I could be more like Bond. And then this weird revelation hits you like from nowhere, and you come up with a brilliant idea to walk to a watchmaker's shop. And wow, it just happens to be an Omega watch in that shop that resembles the one that Bond was wearing in the movie. And you pay $10,000 to put that watch on your wrist, and you leave that store feeling more like Bond. How is that possible? PQ Media tells us that $10.5 billion is turned over in product placement revenue every single year. How is it possible for you to be so easily tricked by something so simple as a story? Because you are tricked. Well, it all comes down to one core thing, and that is emotional investment. The more emotionally invested you are in anything in your life, the less critical and the less objectively observant you become. And the greatest emotional investment of all is falling in love. Now, falling in love resembles a good story. Do you remember the last time you fell in love? Do you? Good for you. It's a beautiful feeling, isn't it? Do you remember how you longed and how you yearned and how you dreamt? And then you looked at her and maybe you thought, God, I love the way you chew that apple. So crunchy. Oh, and the way you slurp that tea just over the edge, you know. Oh, it's so sexy. Love it. And then about 13 months later, when you biochemically fall in out of love, 13 months later, on an average, you fall out of love. Suddenly, you find yourself sitting in the sofa. And you go, Jesus Christ, where did this thing come from? Oh my God, and where are my friends? This is a weird thing. And then suddenly you hear a sound. You go like, what's that? And you go over to the kitchen and you look and you go like, oh, it's you. You're eating an apple there. Could you just keep that down just a little bit? Yeah. You're kind of spraying the table there. Please don't. And you sit down comfortably again, and just a minute later you hear somebody drinking tea from the kitchen going, and suddenly this is all annoying to you. Have you been there? Sadly enough. 13 months later, our critical thinking and our cortex comes home from a 1-year-long vacation, and we start questioning things. Now, during those 13 months, what happened was that your brain was flooded with neurotransmitters and hormones, hijacking your cortex, throwing your objectively observant skills out of the window. And the thing with storytelling is that the same thing can happen. In stories, the same hormones and neurotransmitters can be released. Hormones like vasopressin, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. And you know what? That's what I would like to do during my talk. I would like to induce 3 hormones into your brain. I call it the angel's cocktail, so it's a nice cocktail. I would like to start with radically increasing your dopamine levels. And I need your consent on this. Is it okay? Cool. And if you don't like the idea of that, you'll just have to cover your ears. So dopamine, this is what it looks like. And when you have that in your blood, these are the beautiful effects. You get more focus, more motivation, and you remember things in a better way. So what does dopamine feel like? It feels like this. About 6 years ago, I received a phone call from a woman who represented one of the biggest training companies in Scandinavia, and she said, "Hey, David, we've got a lot of trainers in presentation skills and in rhetorics, and we would like to increase the level of all of these. And we think you are a perfect pick. Would you like to come to a meeting?" I'm like, wow, I'm honored. I'd love to. And I come up to Stockholm, and I'm going to their office, and just as I am going to pull the handle down, what I don't know then is that I'm walking into one of the absolute worst meetings I am ever going to have in my life. But I don't know that yet, so it's okay. I open the door, and I meet this woman. Her name is Lena. And hurriedly she says, "David, just so you know, I'm not the one you're going to have this meeting with. You're going to have it with 3 gentlemen further on here." And I'm like, okay, that's a bit strange. Usually you know who you're going to have the meeting with. And then she progresses with a bit of chit-chatting, and then suddenly she says, are you ready now? And I'm like, yeah, what should I be ready for? And then she says, "Just so you know, can you see the room over there?" And I go like, "Yes, I can see it." "Well, in that room you have the 3 gentlemen. Just so you know, they're all majority owners of this company. They've all got an ex-military background, and none of them wants the training that you are going to pitch." I'm like, come on! Why am I here? And it's like, well, all the trainers want this, but the management they're on too high horses. They can't see that they need it. So it's pretty simple. The only thing you have to do is go in there and kind of, you know, just prove the opposite. I'm like, yeah, that sounds simple, doesn't it? And I can remember myself. I'm walking towards this office. My sweat is coming down my palms. My heart is racing. And just halfway there, she calls my name. And I still, to this day, don't know if this woman is sadomasochistic or just downright unintelligent. Because she calls my name and she goes like, "David." And it's like I'm going to get a tip, you know, something like that. So I turn around to ask her, go like, and she says the following. If I don't tell you what she says there, is that annoying? Well, actually, as an example, I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to prove to you what it feels with high dopamine levels. Would you say that your focus was increased? Your attention was increased? You were creative, you created situations around this, and you probably already figured out what that room looked like, correct? And you remember that I did that to you for quite a while. Now, the feeling you had there was high levels of dopamine, which is beautiful. So how do you do that? Well, what you do is you build suspense, you launch a cliffhanger, and the most beautiful thing of all is that all storytelling is per definition dopamine creating, because it's always something that we're waiting and expecting. So just imagine, just by using storytelling, you can get those techniques. You don't have to do a cliffhanger like I did. So that was the first hormone. I'd now like to go to oxytocin. Is that okay as well? I'll induce that. All right. The beautiful effects of oxytocin are the following. You become more generous, you trust me more, and you bond to me. Do you want to do that? All right. All right, so this was 9 months have passed, and it was a planned cesarean. And the little brother, who was 5 years of age at that point of time, he was kind of really looking forward to what's going to happen. He was going to become a big brother. And he'd helped us pick out the wallpaper, he'd helped choose the bed linen. He'd even saved his own pocket money to buy a little stuffed animal, which was placed on the pillowcase. And about 2 days before the planned cesarean, something happened. Something wasn't right. The parents something was off. And the day before, there was simply no movement. in the stomach. There was no heartbeat. You couldn't feel or hear anything at all. So the parents were rushed into hospital, lay down on a bed, and the doctor comes in, checks the stomach, looks at me, and sees what I see, and that is that the heart is no longer beating for this child. This was me 9 years ago. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I don't know, can you just imagine what you have to tell, how you tell that to a 5-year-old? Can you just imagine that? Because he's home there waiting, anticipation for this coming event. But it won't happen. So part of me, and to handle that, I talk about it. And I've talked to you about it now. And now, you got higher levels of oxytocin in your blood, whether you want it or not. Which means that you feel more human. You're bonding to me, and you feel more relaxed. So how do you do that? In storytelling, you create empathy. So whatever character you build, you create empathy for that character. And oxytocin is the most beautiful hormone of all, because you feel human. Now the third and last hormone is endorphins, and I would like to show you a woman which we can say has overdosed on endorphins. Let's just look what that looks like. Oh, we'll go here.
To inspire and to respond. Are you speaking or listening?
I'm sorry. To speak and to listen.
To inspire and to respond.
To inspire and to respond.
And in all circumstances.
And in all circumstances.
Of our life together.
I'm sorry, of our life together. Of our life together.
Loyal to you.
To be loyal to you.
With my whole life.
With my whole life.
And with all my being.
And with all my being.
Until death parts us.
Until death parts us.
Oh, the timing of that is so lousy, isn't it? So how do you create endorphins? Well, you make people laugh. What happens then is that they become more creative, they become more relaxed, and again, they become more focused, which is beautiful to have. Now, all these three hormones that I've induced into your brain now is what I call the angel's cocktail. But there is an opposite of that cocktail, and I call that the devil's cocktail. And the devil's cocktail has high levels of cortisol and adrenaline. And they feel like this. Ah! Sorry to do that to you. So high levels of cortisol and adrenaline. And the problem with that is that if you got really high concentrations, which I didn't give you there, but when you got high concentrations, look at this. Is this something that you want to have the people you talk to have in their blood, in their system? No. Now, in our stressful work lives, in our stressful lives, many times, when you present, when you communicate, when you deliver meetings, which one do you think they've drunk most of? The devil's cocktail or the angel's cocktail? Most commonly, the devil's cocktail. And the problem then is that you've got all this to work against. But all of that can change today. All of that can change by you starting to use something I call functional storytelling. And functional storytelling means that you do these three things. 1, you have to understand that you don't have to be a bearded old man in front of a fireplace with a dark voice in order to be a great storyteller. In my experience, when I train people, everybody is a good storyteller from birth. The only problem is that you don't believe in it. The second thing is this: write down your stories. You'll notice that you have 3 to 4 times more stories in your life than you normally, or than you thought that you had. 3, index those stories. Which of your stories make people laugh, i.e. create endorphins? Which makes people feel empathy, i.e. oxytocin? And the next time you go into a meeting, you pick the story you want to release the hormone you wish in the person that you're talking to get exactly the desired effects that you want. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, you know me, some of you know me as Mr. Death by PowerPoint. And I want to round off with making my point very clear. And my point is this. 100,000 years ago, we started developing our language. It's sound to say that we started using storytelling to transfer knowledge from generation to generation. 27,000 years ago, we started transferring knowledge from generation to generation through cave paintings. 3,500 years ago, we started transferring knowledge from generation to generation through text. 28 years ago, PowerPoint was born. Which one do you think our brain is mostly adapted to? Thank you very much.
And there we have it. Week 3 lecture out of the way. Hopefully there's some helpful pointers in there for you. Please make sure to check on eClass for your discussion question for the week. Nothing too stressful, nothing too difficult. But let's talk about our first assignment. I don't know who you are. I know nothing about you. I don't know what you look like. I don't know where you're from. I know absolutely nothing. Your typed words on eClass, and your numbers go up throughout the semester. Your participation, your interest, your score, those kinds of things. So what I'd like us to do is make a short introduction video and introduce who you are, where you're from, what do you like, and try to make a point. Make a point using methods we went over in class. Make a point. Why do you want to be a teacher? Try to justify that. You could use a short story about someone who inspired you. Statistics in that public school education, public school teachers have more a stable income and a guaranteed employment until the retirement age. Pretty nice. Or it could be through asking questions and answering questions. So you can think about that. So you're going to introduce yourself, and this will all be on eClass as well. This will be a full explanation on eClass. So introduce who you are, what do you like, where you're from, and explain why you want to be a teacher. And use the methods that we discussed in the lecture. Why do you want to be a teacher? Because if you just say, I want to be a teacher because I love kids. Well, no. Tell us, I'm not going to remember that. Everybody says that. Or you can tolerate kids. If you hate kids, you might be in for a hard time, to be honest. But that is something I want us to start working in. I know you know how to talk. I know you know how to make speeches. I want you to show me that you can. It's very easy to say, yes, you know. Show me it, and I think it'll go very well. So just to review, on eClass, there'll be these short discussion questions and your first assignment, making a short introduction video explaining who you are, what you like, and giving the reason or reasons on why you want to be a teacher. And try to really make a point about it using one or more of the methods of making a point that we learned about today in this class. Hopefully, you're staying healthy. Hopefully, you're staying safe. Hopefully, you're getting vaccinated. Hopefully, you're not getting sick. Hopefully, your family's not getting sick. Hopefully, your friends aren't getting sick. Because I want to have in-person classes, but we'll see how things actually turn out. So, with that, let's stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and have an excellent week. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Don't forget, you're here forever.